Well, hello. This is Peter Combs from Bidamount.com and P.L. Combs Asian Art in Gloucester, Massachusetts. And today is Monday, June 11th, 2018. And as promised, we're going to take a look at the auction results in Hong Kong at Sotheby's, Christie's, and Bonhams. Took place the last couple of days of last month. We had tried to do this last week, but we got behind. One of our websites was down for a few days. We didn't have email, and we're having a ton of work done to our house after last winter's storm. So I've been working around with contractors a bit as well. So it's just been one of those complicated few days. At any rate, these are the catalogs here in the top row that we're going to be taking a look at. These are on the Bidamount.com page on our site under Dealers and Auctioneers. There's a link that'll take you to all the catalogs. There's a lot of catalogs in here, by the way, right now. I think there's 300 of them. So you can go through there and flip through past auctions and look things up, okay? But anyway, we're going to deal with the top row here, and we're going to move over here, and we're going to start up with this catalog. This was the Contemplating the Divine, Fine Buddhist Art. The sales results were pretty disappointing, and a trend that we've been seeing in auctions lately seems to be getting more and more solidified, that overestimated sales are just killing the results. And in this sale, the sold rate was under 50%. It looked like they sold maybe 45% of the lots. They sold a few good ones got off, but it was not a great result. And these were nice things, but I think the sellers are forcing too high an estimate on some things, and it's just killing their collections. They don't realize that unsold lots, when they come back later, don't always do very well because they do get a stigma. And in this particular sale, there was one lot that did fine, but it was a squeaker. It got through, but not by much. It sold for this was this Sui Dynasty gilt bronze Bodhisattva, 13 inches tall. It sold for 1.2 million and change, and had an estimate of 1.1 to 1.5. And the selling price includes the hammer and the buyer's premium. So this sold pretty much at its dead low estimate. All right. And it was a heck of a nice bronze, and they would have been wiser to estimate it at maybe at 500,000 to 700,000 and let the market tell them where the price is. All right, the market knows the price. The auction houses make the best guess they can, but nobody knows. Okay, all right. And then this was another big disappointment. This was probably their biggest disappointment for Christie's, and I feel bad for them. They did a great catalog. Now, it's a beautiful bronze from the Jade Collection, and it didn't sell. And they did a whole lot of write-ups on it. Bob Mowry did a fabulous job with the catalog. And from what I can see, it didn't sell. I looked on the Christie's site. I looked everywhere. Could find no result for it, which is too bad. All right. But then on the other side, you had this thing, this beautiful Qianlong Dynasty double gourd vase with a double strap handle, decorated in the Ming style with this nice dark cobalt blue, sort of that heaping and piling effect and so forth. And just lovely, lovely detail. The photographs they've done now are so clear. You can actually see the bubbles in some places up around here. And it did very well. It ended up selling for 36 million Hong Kong, which was multiples over its high estimate, which was around $4.5 million. All right, so that was a very good result. They should be happy with that. And the next lot up was we're going to talk about was this. This was that really, really great single lot catalog, the Tianchu from the Philbrook Museum. Just a beautiful example. We talked about it at some length. This was the superstar of the sales in the porcelain area. Here's the catalog, and we'll take another look at the pot. There it is, and it sold for $17.5 million, which was about $5 million over its high estimate, which indicates there's still good strength in the market for things that are really fresh to the market and haven't been around with good provenance. And this vase had great provenance that hadn't even been exhibited in the museum it was in for quite some time, from what I understand. So there it is. All right, and did just great. All right, just fabulous thing. Great, beautiful, beautiful thing. All right, and then on to this, Leisurely Delights of the Transient Life. This was a very nice, the cover lot on this was particularly nice. It was a beautiful example. But the sale itself overall was a little bit spotty. And we're going to start first with something that is interesting about the market right now, which were these two Peking glass examples. Both Qianlong. The one on the left was particularly nice, beautiful incense burner form, finely carved, beautifully polished, nice size, good proportions, and a Qianlong mark. Had everything going on it. And what was interesting about this was it had an estimate of $60,000 to $90,000, and a few people thought it might be a little high. Well, it went for $220,000. So it tells me that maybe there's some life coming back into the Peking glass market, which has been pretty quiet for the last 10, 15 years. In the 90s, Peking glass sort of had a bump, and then it tapered off. And the vase on the left, which is quite small, only 4 inches tall, nicely done vase, beautiful quality and all that. And it was estimated, I think the estimate was pretty modest, $26,000 to $38,000, and it ended up selling for about $90,000. So both the Peking glass lots went well over their estimates and seemed to get a lot of interest. So keep an eye on Peking glass from now on, I guess. That's the rule of thumb. And then on to lot number 70, which was the yellow jade hanging vase. This was a really beautiful example. The color of the jade was excellent. The polishing was good. The catalog had some nice write-ups. It had some explanations of this rather curious set of marks on the bottom. It also had a Qianlong mark, which is always great. And here it is, about I think this was around 5 or 6 inches tall. It wasn't very big. And it ended up doing well. It ended up selling for $2.5 million US. All right. But it was a very, very fine example, and the proportions of it, if you look at it and just sort of carefully, the proportions on this piece were just beautifully done, just exceptional. All right, and now we're going to move along over to this. This was the 3 Qianlong Rarities. And these are all stupendous pieces, and of course the cover lot was a moon flask. And if you remember, a couple of weeks ago they had some moon flasks in London on both Sotheby's catalog cover and on the Christie's catalog cover, and neither of them got off the ground. So there was some speculation: is there something wrong with the moon flask market? And fortunately, there isn't. Well, if there is, you didn't know it here. Here's that beautiful moon flask, and it ended up selling. It had an estimate of $7 to $10 million, and it sold right in smack dab, pretty much in the center of its estimates, about 8.6 million, 8.7 million. All right, and this one, if you remember, is very similar to the knockoff being sold at Eden Galleries. We did a video on that, so you can go back and forth and compare them and have some fun. But at any rate, this one sold for 8.7 million. All right, it was a beautiful example. And the next lot was the yellow ground Kai vase. Over here, there it is. This was a really pretty vase with 100 boys pattern, terrific color selection on this, all the way down, from the top down, just beautifully done. This nice iron red Greek key top, and then the iron red beast handles, and this nice soft aqua blue underneath the yellow, because yellow and blue go together really well. And then you have this scene of these kids playing along the riverbank, playing musical instruments. This young kid over here is fishing. 2 are carrying banners. Just a tremendous little jar. And it was around 15 or so inches tall, as I recall, 15 and a half inches. Had a $6.5 to $10 million estimate. And it sold for $8.4 million, which is smack in the center, which is what you want to see. Not overestimated, not underestimated. So there's some pretty good estimating going on with this lot. Okay, and then over to number 38 was the pair of lime green ground Qianlong Market period jars. These were pretty small. They were only 4 inches tall, but highly unusual and very rare. And they were in exceptional condition. And they had been in and out of the market a few times in the last 10 or 15 years, but they still managed. They sold in 2002, about 15 years ago, but they did very well. They were estimated at 2.6 to 3.9 million, and they actually went over their high estimate, which was interesting. They sold for, I think, what was it, 4? Yeah, or 3 million, excuse me. They went for $3 million, just on the upper end of their estimates, excuse me. And they did just fine. So whoever had this consignment should be pretty happy. All right. So this was a success story. And now slipping over here to Sotheby's, we're going to take a look at the, this is the Hawthorne Collection, Gerard Hawthorne and his wife. And I don't think they're real happy. I think, and I'm not blaming Sotheby's for this, I got a feeling that maybe the Hawthornes overestimated the value of their collections, which is not unusual with collectors. We've seen it before with big name collections, and they get a little overexcited, and you get some disappointments. But at any rate, or they just gave it to him and said, well, if it doesn't sell, we'll keep it. Who knows? But this was one of the pieces that did very well. It was the Xiao Ming inlaid box with a horse and rider on the cover. Beautiful selection of wood. The wood selection here was just excellent. And the carving, of course, this was by one of the great masters, was exceptional as well. And it did very, very well. It ended up selling for $280,000. And I love the facial expression of the horse and the rider. And but I found rather curious, if you come over and look at this, where the carver placed the arrow seemed to be going straight up the backside of the deer. I'm not sure why they did that. Normally you see them depicted entering through the ribs or somewhere else, but so be it. And peculiar. And on to number page 76. Was this. This was that fabulous porcelain, gilded porcelain Bodhisattva with the lapis enamels on the shoulders and inlaid with jewels. And these are extremely rare. There's a couple in a couple of museums. The Palace Museum, I think, has some examples of these. But you don't see these in porcelain very often. And this one was all porcelain. And the only way you could see the porcelain from a distance would be if you notice this plaque at the bottom. There it is, a Qianlong mark right there. All right, and that's all you see. So from a distance, this would look like any other very high quality gilt bronze. All right, and I think this sort of sold for a bronze price, even though it's porcelain and much rarer. It was estimated at $128,000 to $192,000. This is obviously Qianlong period, and it ended up selling for $350,000. Now, part of the problem with these too is that they're very hard to estimate because of the rarity. You know, it's hard to put a price on things if they don't turn up on the market. There are no comps really to go by. And that may be what they ran into here. All right. And then over the Bonhams, Chinese ceramics and works of art. Bonham's sale was an interesting sale. They had some good ceramics, but they were very strong in jades. Their jades came up just beautifully well, and we're going to go through some of them. Remember, there was that boat collection we're going to get to, the sand pans and all that. But first, we're going to look at one other thing before we get to it. And let's see here. Was this the cover lot, which was this really lovely white jade phoenix vessel. They call these gongs. It was Qianlong period, but beautiful, beautiful quality. And this had sold, I believe, at Doyle's, as I recall when I did the video before. I think it was Doyle's in New York. For a lot of money. It was estimated at $15,000 or $20,000 and ended up selling for $800,000 or $900,000. And I was wondering how this would do because it just sold a couple of years ago. It's better photographed here than it was at Doyle's. Doyle didn't take very good photographs of this. But at any rate, here it is. And it did extremely well. It ended up bringing $1.4 million. So after commissions, whoever bought it at Doyle's made a couple of hundred thousand on it anyway. Didn't make a killing. But it was a heck of a nice jade. And I don't know what the circumstances were behind selling it so soon after buying it. I think he had only had it for maybe 2 years. All right. And now over to the Jade collection from the French collection of Jade Boats. This had very interesting results. They all sold. This was caused a lot of excitement because it was a sort of a unique collection. And in several different materials. There were some here in other hardstones beyond jade. But we're going to focus on the jade, I think, here. And the first one up was lot number 34. And this was a beautiful example. It sold for $76,000. All right. And here it is. All right. It's a very nice piece. Had a nice, probably a later stand given to it. But a good example nonetheless. And then we're going to skip over to the next page, which was this. This was a very fine greenish jade boat. I love the swirling waves coming up along, lapping the sides, and you have the fellow steering, and a young boy in the front with a lotus pot on his shoulder, and they're carrying some plants on their boat. And let's see what that brought. That went for, $119,000. That did a little better, but it also had a great stand and it was more intricately carved. All right. And then we're going to slip this was lot number 36. This was a very nice example, and it was estimated at $51,000 to $75,000. It did pretty well. It brought 66,000, and I suspect some people might have found the proportions of the jar in the center of the boat to be a little too much. Visually, they might have found it a little bit out of scale. I liked it a lot, but it ended up selling for 66,000. All right. And now we're going to hop over here to this one. This was one of the stars of this selection of boats. Was this really beautiful? Again, these are all Qianlong, and this one was marking period. Okay, that does make a big difference. I should point that out. I know you all know it. But I thought I'd say it anyway. But a beautifully carved boat, very naturalistically done. It looked like out of a fallen, like he's riding in a fallen tree down the river, and so forth. And this did quite well. It ended up going for $960,000, just under $1 million. All right, it was about 9 inches long, in case you're wondering. It wasn't terribly big, but spectacular quality, obviously, and market period. All right, and then we're going to slip back over here. This was another boat that was, there's the backside of that last boat. Here's another boat that was in the sale. This was lot number 38. Another beautiful boat on what looks to be maybe a Zetan stand or some kind of beautiful hardwood stand. And it did fine. It brought 66,000. I don't think it was as intricately or as interestingly carved as the other one, and it wasn't marked. All right. It was just as 18th to 19th century, so it was a little later. All right. And on to number 39. This was another boat that was beautifully done, 18th or 19th century, but a bit more detailed, a bit more detail in it, and sort of an interesting scene with the kid horsing around up on the bow, and again, an even more intricately decorated stand. And it ended up selling for $191,000. The impact that a little more carving and a little more detail and a little bit maybe slightly better jade color really impacts it. Okay, that was a nice jade boat. And this was one of the stars, as I recall. Yeah, this was lot 40, and it had a carved chain out of jade and this really interesting stand. I love the stand under this thing. But look at the color, the greenish tone of this jade. Just lovely jade coloring, but very detailed. All carved out of, a single piece of jade. Just beautiful quality. The fine rope twists up and around and over the spar and all that stuff. Just a beautiful example. And it ended up selling for $471,000 US. It's quite a result. And then last, we're going to hop over to page 49. Whoops, excuse me. Made a mistake here. Page 136 was this. This was that beautiful small red imperial copper red vase with a Qianlong mark on the bottom. We talked about this a couple of weeks ago. I just thought it was a really sweet thing. Interesting ownership history, some good ownership stickers on the bottom. Just the way, collectors just love to find them, okay? Long history, but also, most importantly, superb quality and form. And it was estimated at $130,000 to $190,000, which I think I mentioned I thought was fairly reasonable for what it was. I really like this. I personally like it, but you never know what the rest of the world's going to think. And this one did very well. It brought $254,000. It was a small vase, 9 inches tall, but lovely color, and did very, very well. Nothing to complain about there. And that's it. All right. And if you haven't subscribed to us here yet on Bidamount.com or here on YouTube, please do sign up for it. Come over to the forum. I checked over the weekend. We're up to almost 1,100 users on the forum. It's pretty good. And sign up for the newsletter and get on board with that. And we'll see you all next time. We'll do the regular video on Friday. And until then, have a fabulous week. Enjoy it. Summer's here. Get out with your family and friends and do things too. And I hope you find something out there that you love. All right. Thanks so much. Bye-bye.